The emergency bay doors of Station Nexus 7 burst open with a pneumatic hiss, and Dr. Kaya Thorne looked up from her medical reports to see chaos stumbling through the threshold. A tall, elegant figure, made of what appeared to be living crystal, lurched forward, her translucent blue form crackling with fractures of panic. In her arms, she clutched a smaller version of herself, a child whose inner light flickered like a dying star. "Help!" the crystalline being gasped in accented standard, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "My son, he doesn't breathe." Kaya dropped her tablet and rushed forward, her human hands already reaching out before her mind caught up. Around the medical bay, other staff members, a tentacled Morphean nurse, two insectoid Kethri doctors, and a gaseous nebula physician all took deliberate steps backward. "Biohazard protocol," announced Dr. Kickstal, the Kethri chief of medicine, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh station lighting. "Zephyrian physiology is incompatible with standard treatment. Cross-contamination risks are too high." "He's dying," Kaya said simply, her hands now hovering over the child. The little one's crystal form was cloudy, his natural luminescence dim and fading. "Not our problem." Dr. Kickstal clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Take it to quarantine. Let nature take its course." The Zephyrian mother, Veltara, she'd managed to whisper between sobs, looked between the alien medical staff with growing desperation. Her fractal features shifted through spectrums of blue and silver, each color change, broadcasting her anguish more clearly than words ever could. Kaya felt something twist in her chest, that familiar human response that her xenobiology professors back on Earth had called dangerously emotional and professionally inappropriate. She'd been told repeatedly during her assignment to Nexus 7 that human empathy was a weakness in the cold calculations of interstellar medicine. But as she looked at Veltara's shimmering tears, actual crystalline droplets that tinkled like broken glass on the medical bay floor, Kaya knew she couldn't walk away. "Give him to me," she said firmly. "Dr. Thorne," Dr. Kickstal's voice carried a warning, "you are not authorized." "He's a child." Kaya's voice cut through the protests as she gently took the small form from Veltara's arms. The baby was surprisingly warm, his crystal structure more delicate than spun glass. "And I'm a doctor." The station's environmental systems hummed around them as Kaya carried the child to her workstation. She could feel the weight of alien stares, some curious, others disapproving. Through the medical bay's observation window, she caught a glimpse of Commander Jarek Voss, the station administrator, watching from the corridor with an unreadable expression on his sharp, angular features. Kaya pushed everything else from her mind and focused on the tiny being in her arms. His crystal structure was unlike anything in her medical training, but the fundamentals remained the same. He needed oxygen, circulation, neural stimulation. She grabbed her emergency kit and began adapting human resuscitation techniques, her hands moving with practiced precision despite the alien anatomy. "Breathe," she whispered, pressing rhythmically on the child's chest cavity. "Come on, little star. Breathe for your mother." Around her, the medical bay had fallen silent, except for Veltara's soft, musical weeping. Even the critical alien doctors watched as this primitive human refused to accept the inevitable, refused to let logic override compassion. Minutes stretched like hours until finally, impossibly, the child's inner light flickered once, twice, then blazed back to brilliant life. His first cry was like crystal bells ringing out across the cosmos. Veltara's sob of joy echoed through the bay as Kaya gently placed the now-breathing infant back in his mother's arms. The Zephyrian looked at her with eyes like captured starlight. "You," she whispered in her musical language, then switched to standard. "You are not just human. You are hope itself." As mother and child were taken to recovery, Kaya felt a presence behind her. She turned to find Commander Voss standing there, his hybrid features, human enough to be familiar, alien enough to be mysterious, studying her with newfound interest. "That was either very brave or very foolish, Doctor," he said, his voice carrying the hint of an accent she couldn't place. Kaya met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Something flickered in his unusual, ember eyes, approval perhaps or recognition. In the distance, she could hear Veltara singing a soft lullaby to her son, their combined crystalline voices creating harmony that seemed to make the very air shimmer. Word would spread quickly through the station, Kaya knew. Humans were already viewed with suspicion by most galactic species, too emotional, too unpredictable, too primitive. But perhaps, she thought as she watched Commander Voss walk away, that might not always be seen as a weakness. Perhaps, in a galaxy that had forgotten how to care, being human was exactly what the universe needed. 3 days after saving Veltara's child, Kaya found herself working longer shifts than usual, not because of increased patient load, but because Commander Jarek Voss had begun appearing in the medical bay with surprising frequency, always finding reasons to check protocols, review supply requisitions, or discuss station security concerns. Dr. Thorne. His voice carried that same intriguing accent as he approached her workstation where she was treating a wounded Draknari refugee. "I need to speak with you about the Zephyrian incident." Kaya finished sealing the reptilian patient's laser burns with biogel before looking up. "What about it?" "Walk with me." It wasn't really a request. They moved through the station's curved corridors, past the observation deck where stars wheeled slowly beyond reinforced transparent steel. Jarek's hybrid nature was more apparent in profile, the sharp cheekbones and elongated ears of his Altarian heritage blended seamlessly with distinctly human eyes and expressions. "The Galactic Medical Council has received reports," he said quietly. "They're concerned about unauthorized cross-species treatment protocols." Concerned that it worked. Kaya's voice carried an edge. Jarek stopped walking and faced her, his amber eyes intense. Concerned that a human showed more courage and compassion than their entire medical establishment. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was softer. "I've been fielding communications all day. Half the sector wants to know more about your techniques. The other half wants you removed from the station. And what do you want?" The question slipped out before Kaya could stop it, loaded with meaning neither of them had intended to acknowledge. For a moment, Jarek's careful commander's mask slipped, revealing something raw and honest underneath. "I want you to stay," he admitted. "The station needs doctors who see patients, not just case studies." Their eyes met and held, the space between them suddenly electric with possibility. Kaya felt her pulse quicken as Jarek stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint luminescent patterns beneath his skin, a mark of his alien heritage. "Commander," she started, but he shook his head. "Jarek. When we're alone, just Jarek." Before either could say more, an emergency klaxon echoed through the corridors. They sprang apart as if caught doing something forbidden, which perhaps they were. Interspecies relationships weren't technically prohibited, but they weren't encouraged either, especially between humans and command staff. The emergency was a transport crash just outside the station's defensive perimeter, a ship full of Tyrellian refugees, their ship's life support failing. As Kaya worked alongside the other medics, she was acutely aware of Jarek coordinating the rescue efforts, his voice calm and authoritative over the comm systems. Hours later, when the last patient was stabilized, Kaya found herself alone in the medical bay. The station had shifted to night cycle, and the softer lighting cast everything in gentle shadows. She was updating patient records when Jarek appeared in the doorway. "Long day," he said, leaning against the frame. "The Tyrellians will recover." Kaya replied, not looking up from her tablet, though I had to improvise their pain medication. Their nervous systems don't respond to standard analgesics. You improvised again. There was something in his tone that made her look up. It's what I do. Jarek pushed off from the doorway and moved closer. It's who you are, he corrected. That's what makes you... He paused, searching for words. What makes you extraordinary? The compliment hit her like a physical force. In a galaxy where being human often meant being dismissed, having someone, especially someone like Jarek, see her as extraordinary felt more intimate than any touch. Jarek, she whispered, standing slowly. This time when he moved closer, she didn't step back. His hand reached up to cup her cheek, his touch warm and slightly electric from his Altarian genetics. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Instead, she rose, on her toes, and kissed him. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as weeks of unspoken attraction finally found expression. Jarek's arms encircled her, pulling her against his chest, where she could feel his heart beating as rapidly as her own. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This is complicated, Kaya breathed against his lips. Everything worthwhile is, Jarek replied, resting his forehead against hers. They stood there in the quiet medical bay, holding each other as the station continued its eternal orbit around distant stars. Outside, the galaxy continued its complex dance of politics and prejudice, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, human and hybrid, doctor and commander, two souls finding solace in each other's arms. "Stay with me tonight," Jarek whispered, his voice vulnerable in a way she'd never heard before. Kaya's answer was another kiss, deeper and more certain than the first. As he led her toward his quarters, she felt the weight of invisible barriers falling away. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and she suspected there would be many, they would face them together. The message chimes from various sectors continued to echo through the station's corridors, some praising the human doctor's innovation, others demanding her removal. But for now, in the sanctuary of each other's arms, Kaya and Jarek found a peace that transcended species, protocol, and the vast indifference of space itself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patience, and new prejudices to overcome. Tonight, they had each other, and in a galaxy that often seemed devoid of genuine connection, that felt like a miracle worth protecting. The soft chime of Jarek's private quarters roused Kaya from the deepest sleep she'd experienced in months. Alien dawn was breaking through the viewport, casting prismatic light across tangled sheets and bare skin still warm from the night's intimacies. Jarek's arm tightened around her waist as she stirred, his breath warm against her neck. "Don't go yet," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep and contentment. Kaya turned in his arms, marveling at how natural this felt despite the complexity of their situation. His hybrid features were softer in the morning light, the luminescent patterns beneath his skin pulsing gently with his heartbeat. She traced one with her fingertip, watching his eyes flutter closed at her touch. "I have patients to check on," she whispered, though she made no move to leave his embrace. "They can. Wait 5 more minutes." His lips found hers, and 5 minutes stretched into 20 as they lost themselves in each other once again. When Kaya finally made it to the medical bay, she found Dr. Kickstall waiting with what could only be described as a smug expression, if insects could be smug. Several message crystals sat on her workstation, their surfaces glowing with priority communications. "Dr. Thorne," the Kethri chief clicked disapprovingly, "the Galactic Medical Oversight Committee has been quite busy overnight." Kaya activated the first crystal, and a stern Valorian administrator's holographic image materialized. "Dr. Thorne, your recent unauthorized medical interventions have raised serious concerns about contamination protocols and professional boundaries. You are hereby ordered to report to Galactic Medical Headquarters for disciplinary review." The second message was worse, a formal complaint filed by the Nexarian Medical Guild, accusing her of dangerous anthropocentric bias and contamination of established medical practices. The third was from her own human medical corps, expressing concern about her unorthodox methods. Problems? Jarek's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, and though his expression was carefully neutral, she could see worry in his amber eyes. "The usual," she replied, deactivating the messages. "Half the galaxy wants to study my methods. The other half wants to exile me for having them." Dr. Kickstall's mandibles clicked in what might have been satisfaction. Perhaps Dr. Thorne would benefit from reassignment to a less diverse medical facility. The threat was clear, and Kaya felt a familiar surge of defiance. But before she could respond, new alerts began chiming throughout the medical bay. Multiple incoming casualties from the mining colonies in the Kepler sector, an outbreak of something the preliminary reports were calling Cascade Syndrome. Within hours, the medical bay was filled with patients from 6 different species, all exhibiting similar symptoms: cellular breakdown, neural deterioration, and system-wide organ failure. The other medical staff worked frantically with standard treatments, but nothing was stopping the progression. "It's jumping between species," Kaya observed, studying the latest blood work. "This shouldn't be possible with normal pathogens." "Impossible or not, it's happening," Jarek said grimly, joining her at the central console. "We've got 14 stations reporting cases now." Kaya pulled up comparative biological data, her mind racing through possibilities. What if it's not a pathogen at all? What if it's some kind of energy-based infection? "Energy-based?" Dr. Kickstall scoffed. "Humans and their wild theories." But Kaya was already moving, pulling up energy readings from the affected sectors. There, a pattern in the subspace field fluctuations that coincided with the outbreak timeline. "Look at this," she called to Jarek. "The mining operations have been using new quantum extraction techniques. What if they've disturbed something? Something that can infect life force itself," Jarek murmured, understanding immediately. "How do we treat an energy infection?" "The same way we treat any infection," Kaya said, her hands flying over the console. "We boost the immune system and create a hostile environment for the pathogen, but instead of biochemical treatments, bioelectric," Jarek finished. "You want to electrify our patients." "Carefully modulated bioelectric fields, yes. Each species would need different frequencies, different intensities." Kaya looked up at him, knowing how insane this sounded. "It's completely theoretical. No one's ever tried anything like this." "Dr. Thorne," Dr. Kickstall's voice carried disbelief and horror. "You cannot seriously be suggesting we use untested energy treatments on dying patients." "I'm suggesting we try to save them," Kaya replied firmly, "because your conventional treatments aren't working." Jarek studied the data, his hybrid heritage perhaps giving him insights the others lacked. "The energy patterns match Altarian healing frequencies," he said slowly. "We use bioelectric therapy for certain conditions. If Kaya's right, if she's wrong, she could kill them all," Dr. Kickstall protested. "They're dying anyway," Kaya pointed out. "At least this gives them a chance." The argument might have continued, but a new arrival ended the debate. Veltara stumbled into the medical bay, her crystal form dimmed and fractured, carrying her son, who was once again fading. The Cascade Syndrome had reached the Zephyrian sectors. "Please," she whispered, recognizing Kaya immediately. "He saved my son before. Let her try again." Looking at the dying child, then at the other patients throughout the bay, Kaya felt the weight of the moment. Behind her, she sensed Jarek's presence, his silent support giving her strength. "I'll need help calibrating the frequencies," she said quietly. "You'll have it," Jarek replied without hesitation. As they worked together, their professional partnership seamlessly blending with the deeper intimacy they'd discovered. Kaya realized that whatever happened next would define not just her career, but her place in this vast, complicated galaxy. The treatment was risky, unprecedented, and flew in the face of every established protocol. It was also the most human thing she could do: refuse to accept that some problems were unsolvable, that some lives weren't worth the risk of trying something new. The first bioelectric pulse hummed through the medical bay, and across 6 different species, dying cells began to fight back against the cascade syndrome. In the observation window, Kaya caught sight of other station administrators watching, some with hope, others with barely concealed hostility. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's reputation hung in the balance. The bioelectric treatment was working. Across 17 different species, the cascade syndrome was retreating as carefully modulated energy fields restored cellular integrity and neural function. But Kaya's success only intensified the political storm surrounding her methods. "This is getting out of hand," Jarek said quietly, reviewing the latest communications in his private office. Kaya sat across from his desk, exhaustion evident in every line of her body, despite the triumph of the past week. "The Nexarian Medical Guild is pushing for a formal censure. They're claiming your treatments violate the interspecies medical accords. Because I saved lives using methods they didn't approve first?" Kaya's voice carried bitter frustration. Jarek reached across the desk to take her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Because you proved that human intuition and compassion can succeed where their rigid protocols failed. That terrifies them." Their moment of connection was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything, in harsh red as automated voices announced, "Multiple hostile vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Jarek was on his feet instantly, his commander's training overriding everything else. "Stay in the medical bay," he told Kaya firmly. "If this is what I think it is, what do you think it is?" His amber eyes were hard as crystallized fire. "The Sovereignty Coalition. They've been pushing for human removal from all frontier medical posts. If they can't discredit you legally..." The implication hung between them as another alarm klaxon sounded. Through the office's viewport, Kaya could see sleek warships emerging from hyperspace, their weapons arrays already charging. "I have to get to the command center," Jarek said, but he pulled her close first, kissing her with desperate intensity. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "Whatever happens, I need you to know that." "Jarek, I love you too," she managed to say before he was gone, running toward the command center as the station shuddered under the first wave of enemy fire. The medical bay became controlled chaos as wounded began arriving from the outer sections. Kaya threw herself into triage, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Each explosion that rocked the station sent her heart racing, wondering if Jarek was safe, if the command center was holding. "Dr. Thorne!" Dr. Kickstall's voice cut through the noise. "We need to evacuate critical patients to the inner core." "No," Kaya said firmly, sealing a plasma burn on a Tyrellian engineer's arm. "We treat them here. Moving them now could kill them." "Staying. It could kill us all." Another massive explosion sent medical equipment sliding across the deck. Through the bay's viewport, Kaya could see one of the attacking ships firing directly at the station's medical sections. They weren't just trying to capture the station, they were targeting the medical bay specifically. They were targeting her. "Get everyone to the surgical suites," she ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "The inner walls have better shielding." As they moved the most critical patients, Kaya's hands never stopped working. A Draknari child with internal bleeding, an elderly Morphian whose tentacles had been severed by debris, 3 Zephyrian refugees whose crystal structures were fracturing from shock, each one needed immediate attention and conventional protocols. Said she should prioritize by species compatibility. Instead, she prioritized by need, treating each patient with whatever methods would save their lives, regardless of medical politics or cross-species concerns. Around her, other medical staff began following her lead, improvising treatments and sharing techniques across species lines. "Dr. Thorne!" A communications officer stumbled into the surgical suite, his uniform scorched. "Commander Voss is requesting you on emergency frequency." Kaya accepted the comm unit without stopping her work on the Morphian patient. "Jarek, what's your status?" "They've breached the outer hull." His voice was strained, filled with pain. "Kaya, they're not just attacking the station. They're targeting anyone who's implemented your medical protocols. 3 other facilities have been hit." "Are you hurt?" She could hear weapons fire in the background, the sound of metal being torn apart. "I'm fine, listen to me. You need to get to the evacuation pods. They want you specifically. I'm not leaving my patients." "Damn it, Kaya." The transmission cut off as another explosion rocked the station. Through the surgical suite's reinforced windows, she could see fires burning across multiple sections. But in the medical bay, surrounded by patients from a dozen different species, all being treated with the same desperate compassion, Kaya felt something she'd never experienced before. She felt like she was exactly where she belonged. "Dr. Thorne." Veltara appeared beside her, her crystal form now strong and bright again. "My people have contacted our defense fleet. They're en route." "The Zephyrians are coming to help?" "Not just the Zephyrians." Veltara's voice carried quiet amazement. "Ships from 17 different species, all patients you've treated, all families you've saved. They've heard what's happening here." As if to confirm her words, new shapes began appearing on the tactical displays. A mixed fleet of vessels from across the galaxy, all converging on Station Nexus 7. Kaya watched in stunned amazement as former enemies flew side by side, united by the simple fact that a human doctor had refused to let their loved ones die. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Nexus intervention, the first time in galactic history that multiple species had united not for conquest or politics, but to protect someone who had shown them compassion. When it was over, the Sovereignty Coalition ships were retreating, and Kaya was performing emergency surgery on Jarek, who had taken shrapnel to his chest while defending the medical base secondary power core. Her hands shook as she worked, but her training held steady. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispered as she sealed the worst of his wounds. "I just figured out I can't live without you." Jarek's eyes fluttered open, finding hers immediately. "Did we win?" Kaya looked around the surgical suite, where medical staff from multiple species were working together with techniques she'd taught them, saving lives without regard for politics or protocol. Through the viewport, ships from across the galaxy maintained protective formation around the station. "Yeah," she said softly, leaning down to kiss his forehead. "I think we did." 6 months after the Battle of Nexus 7, Dr. Kaya Thorne stood before the Galactic Medical Assembly, no longer as a defendant, but as the founding director of the Interspecies Medical Alliance. The vast amphitheater buzzed with representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had once viewed humans as primitive and expendable. "The old paradigms have failed us," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "We've spent centuries treating medicine as a series of isolated protocols, each species locked in its own biological prejudices. But disease doesn't recognize political boundaries, and neither should healing." In the front row, Jarek watched, with quiet pride, his hand unconsciously moving to the scar on his chest where Kaya had saved his life. Beside him sat Veltara, now serving as the Zephyrian representative to the Alliance, her crystal form pulsing with supportive light patterns. The presentation concluded with footage from 17 different medical facilities across the galaxy, all now using integrated treatment protocols developed from Kaya's innovations. Species that had never cooperated before were sharing medical knowledge, creating hybrid techniques that saved lives previously thought impossible to preserve. Dr. Thorne, the ancient Valorian Chief Justice, intoned, "The Assembly recognizes the Interspecies Medical Alliance as an independent entity, with full authority to establish treatment protocols across member territories." The vote was unanimous, something that had never happened in the Assembly's 1,000-year history. Later that evening, as celebration parties continued throughout Station Nexus 7, Kaya found herself on the observation deck, where this had all begun. The stars wheeled slowly beyond the transparent steel, and for the first time in months, she felt truly peaceful. "Hiding from your own party?" Jarek's voice made her smile as he joined her at the railing. "Just thinking," she replied, leaning into his warmth as his arms encircled her from behind. "A year ago, I was just another human doctor that nobody took seriously. Now you've changed how an entire galaxy thinks about medicine," he finished. "And about humans." They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships from dozens of species dock with the station. The sight that would have been impossible just months before was now routine. Former enemies working together, sharing knowledge and resources, all because one human doctor had refused to accept that some lives weren't worth saving. "I have something for you," Jarek said softly, turning her in his arms. From his jacket, he produced a small crystalline object that seemed to contain captured starlight. "It's a Zephyrian bonding crystal," he explained. "Veltara helped me choose it. It's their equivalent of a proposal," Kaya breathed, recognizing the significance immediately. "In 17 different cultures, actually," Jarek admitted with a nervous smile. "I wanted to make sure I did this properly, according to all the species that owe their lives to you." The crystal pulsed with warm light as Kaya took it, and she could feel the energy patterns within, not just Zephyrian technology, but elements from dozens of species, all woven together into something new and beautiful. "It's perfect," she whispered, rising on her toes to kiss him. Their kiss was interrupted by cheers from the observation deck's entrance, where Veltara and several other Alliance members had gathered. Soon, the deck was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all celebrating the union of the human doctor and hybrid commander who had shown them that love, like healing, transcended all boundaries. The bonding ceremony took place 3 weeks later, conducted according to traditions from 12 different species. Kaya wore a gown that incorporated elements from each culture: Zephyrian crystal threading, Tyrellian bioluminescent fibers, Altarian energy conduits that responded to emotion with gentle light. As she and Jarek exchanged vows under the light of 3 different suns, Kaya reflected on the journey that had brought them here. It had begun with a dying child and a mother's desperate plea, but it had become something much larger, proof that in a galaxy vast and often cruel, compassion could still triumph over prejudice, love could still conquer fear. "Do you take this, being as your bonded partner," the officiator asked in the ancient Altarian tongue, "to share your light through all the darkness of space?" "I do," Kaya replied, first in Standard, then in each of the languages represented at their ceremony. "And do you," the officiator turned to Jarek, "take this being as your bonded partner, to guard her flame and tend her spirit through all the long years among the stars?" "I do," Jarek answered, his voice strong and certain, as they sealed their bond with the traditional kiss. The crystal in Kaya's necklace blazed with brilliant light, and similar crystals throughout the assembled crowd responded in sympathy. creating a constellation of joy that seemed to make the very air sing. Later, in the quiet of their shared quarters aboard the newly christened Alliance medical vessel Harmony, Kaya and Jarek lay entwined beneath windows that showed the swirling colors of hyperspace. They were en route to the Outer Rim, where reports of a new plague required their unique approach to interspecies medicine. "No regrets?" Jarek asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Kaya considered the question seriously. She'd given up a safe, predictable career on Earth for this complicated life among the stars. She'd chosen love over security, innovation over convention, hope over fear. "None," she said finally, turning to meet his amber eyes. "Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I wish I could go back and tell that scared human medical student that someday the galaxy would see being human not as a weakness, but as exactly what it needed." Yarek's smile was radiant in the starlight, filtering through their windows. "I think she would have been proud to know what she'd become." Outside, the stars streamed past in ribbons of light as the Harmony carried its crew toward new challenges. New patients, new opportunities to prove that healing knew no boundaries. And in their quarters, the human doctor and her hybrid love held each other close, knowing that whatever the universe might bring, they would face it together. Hearts united across the vast darkness of space, proof that love truly was the most powerful force in any galaxy.